Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody had a wonderful, wonderful Christmas, great weekend. Did enjoy myself. I did. I enjoyed myself to some degree. It was a little off this year. We usually like to get the whole family together. A little difficult to do right now. We've got some logistical issues down in Florida with hurricane rebuilds and a myriad of other things that I don't want to get into. Also, my eldest, he had like some sort of virus throughout the entire thing, so it was limited. We did get to see some family and friends, but I gotta take care of my eldest son this week. I have to go out to dinner or something like that because he was basically in his room, miserable with this virus. But anyway, enough with that. How cold were you? I was in the 30s down in Florida. It was pretty damn cold up here as well. The wind chills were down in the near zero, if not below. Then you've got upstate New York and the issues taking place there. It was interesting about this entire thing. And what I want to touch on today is that cold weather happens. Hurricanes happen. These things happen. And you don't want to be paralyzed by these things. And if we were to use this example of this storm as a bit of a dry run for everybody's electric hopes and dreams, we're in trouble, people. We are. There's a great editorial piece today in the Wall Street Journal. A lot of the country, much of the country was told this weekend to turn down the heat if they had electric heat. Turn those thermostats down. Ease off on the electricity. They were telling people with electric cars not to charge them. This is a problem. They had rolling blackouts in the Carolinas. 65. I'm going through these numbers here, and it was not good. Not good. Not to mention the fact you take a look at the Sun Belt, and it got cold down in that region, and most of those homes are heated by electricity. Now what happens? Everybody's plugging their cars in. The grid can't take it. We're nowhere near ready. Nowhere near ready to make this big transformation to electric cars and electric heat. It's just not possible, people. And again, you take a look at, is it state of California? They want to mandate electric heaters. And this is the same state that has rolling blackouts all the time, telling people not to charge their EVs. How do you run a country like this? I mean, people, these are things they talk about, and I call Washington, D.C., they call it the cathedral of unintended consequences. You don't have to be that deep of a thinker to see what possibly could go wrong with all your grandiose ideas here. Anybody want to think any of this through at all? This was fascinating as well. You had the CEO of Toyota. His name is Akio Toyoda. He basically caused the whole climate crazies to go nuts about speaking the truth about electric vehicles. Just like the fully autonomous cars that we were all supposed to be driving by now, I think the electric vehicles are going to take longer to become mainstream than the media would like us to believe. He added that a silent majority in the auto industry share his view, but they think it's the trend, so they can't speak out loudly. Yeah, they're cowards. They are. They're cowards. They're afraid. Main notes in a plan submitted to the Federal Highway Administration this summer. This is state of Maine. Cold temperatures will remain a top challenge for adoption since cold weather reduces EV range and increases charging times. Now get this. We just had this happen this past weekend. When temperatures drop to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, the cars achieve only 54% of their quoted range. I had information coming in where people couldn't even charge their cars. They couldn't even charge them. They were so cold. They were sitting there and the car was telling them that the battery was warming up and they were getting nothing. So a vehicle that's supposed to go 250 miles between charges will make it only 135 miles on average at 32 degrees, which is a typical winter day in much of the country. A Tesla Model 3 that in ideal conditions can go 282 miles between charges will make it only 173 miles. Imagine if the 100 million Americans who took to the road over the holidays were driving electric cars. Again, we're already hearing the horror stories, what's happening in upstate New York, in the Buffalo region. People got stranded in their cars and froze to death. What would have happened? What would have happened if 100 million Americans were driving EVs and their cars stranded when the temperatures went down? There's not enough tow trucks. There's not enough medics. People would die. That is a reality, people. This is the truth. To all of you people out there that you want all this, you know what? Fine, but you've yet to come up with a plan to get us there. You can't just declare and decree something and make it so. You want electric vehicles? Well, you know what? We have to do this first. Maybe we adopt it in these areas first. Maybe we go with urban areas where they're stuck in traffic and they're more likely to be in smog. Maybe we don't consider these areas up in the Midwest. The temperatures that they had in the Dakotas and Montana, all these places. Electric vehicles? Yeah, not to mention the grid can't handle it. They can't. And the grid is a mess. You can't just amp up nuclear power when you want to. Anyway, charging stations. Well, wait, hold on a second. Transportation Department, we've gone over this before, requiring states to build charging stations every 50 miles along interstate highways and within a mile of off-ramps to reduce the likelihood of these scenarios. But again, state electrical grids aren't built to handle this many charging stations and thus will require expensive upgrades. Illinois warns of challenges related to sufficient electric grid capacity, particularly in rural areas of the state. Charging stations in rural areas with less traffic are also unlikely to be profitable and could become stranded assets, as many states warn. Wyoming says out-of-state traffic from non-Tesla electric vehicles would have to increase 100-fold to cover charger costs under the administration's rules. New Mexico warns that poor station maintenance can lead to stations being perpetually broken and unstable. I can go right on down the list. We've talked about all of this here on the program. Again, we don't have any sort of coherent energy policy. We got this Department of Energy that doesn't create any energy at all. And we go from one administration to the next administration with different rules, different regulations. We can't get out of our own way. There's no sort of long-term plan. And again, I know a lot of you people out there, you call them greens. I consider myself green. I consider myself an environmentalist, except I'm common sense. Okay, I want to solve the problem. I don't want to butt heads when it comes to this. I want to solve the problem. And again, you want to deal with carbon in the atmosphere. And again, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Okay, but all right, that's what we want to do. That's what the country wants to do. Okay, how do we get to that point in time? How do we get there? Because right now, what we're doing is not working. It's not. Anyway, a little side note on upstate New York and the tragedies are unfolding, not just upstate New York, Buffalo area, and around the country. the deaths that are attributed to this storm. And granted, a lot of them I think are going to have to do with people that heart attacks and whatnot while shoveling snow that was too deep. But again, you see what happened in Buffalo with the looting that took place. I see, people know that I'm from upstate New York. Now I'm, hell and high water away from Buffalo. I grew up in Albany, New York. Was I surprised? That was surprised by what happened in Buffalo? No. Last time I was in Buffalo was what, 3-4 years ago, and they've got a lot they have to do. I mean, I know they're building a new Bills stadium up there, but many areas of upstate New York just very, very depressed. Not surprised at all by that. Anyway, let's move on to some of the economic news here. Again, this is interesting. Again, big fat see I told you so moment. 79% of workers recently hired after a tech company layoff or termination landed their new job within 3 months of starting their search. 79% of people that were laid off. Wow. Got jobs quick. Nearly 4 in 10 laid off tech workers found jobs in less than a month. Again, this is a very odd state we're in when it comes to the economy. Everybody keeps talking about a recession. I don't even know if they can call a recession unless jobs really fall off. And quite frankly, I don't see that happening right now unless the Fed gets really, really nuts, or God forbid something horrible happens on the geopolitical front. I mean, we had 2 quarters of negative economic growth in 2022 in a row, and that is the textbook definition of a recession. However, again, the NBER likes to consider unemployment in that. And whereas obviously job growth is slowing, that's inevitable, there's still job openings everywhere. And there's a dynamic that there have been points in time in most of our lives where we know that just wasn't the case. Where you found it difficult at times to get a job, work. There was times where I'd come home from break from college, and you had a hard time finding a job working at the food court at the mall. Not now. Supply chains that were a mess not too long ago, back to normal. Goods are moving around the world again, reaching companies and consumers. There's obviously some production issues because of COVID outbreaks in China. Gone are the week-long backlogs of cargo ships at large ports. Ocean shipping rates have plunged below pre-pandemic levels. Again, that was inevitable as well. And again, this deflationary. This is helpful. It's going to take some time to work its way in, but hopefully we'll start seeing this in the first half of this year. And again, this goes to the theme that I've been saying here, that there really isn't much that the Federal Reserve can do when it comes to inflation. I had this conversation on air early this morning, talking about, retail sales came in, MasterCard study, and they were up 15% over the holiday season. And again, you also got inflation to factor in as well. It's pretty strong. Actually, the numbers for restaurants were very, very high. What does this mean? You could take inflation into account, but some of that inflation, quite frankly, is in the things that we buy every day. Take eggs, for instance. Think about all of the things that eggs go into. It's like petroleum. Think of all the things that petroleum goes into. And avian crisis. You've got this avian flu. There's massive amounts of chickens that have had to have been destroyed because of this. And egg prices have gone through the roof. There's nothing the Federal Reserve can do about that. Nothing. And again, this is, if I was running the Fed, I know they got all their frickin' models out there. and they love their models, and that's what they go to. But your models are useless when certain information comes in. Just trying to model an economy is absolutely useless because it's so dynamic. Do you think the Fed is sitting around saying, well, we're looking at, this food inflation costs and they're high here, but, we got to take into consideration that egg prices have gone up because of this. Do you think that their models factor that in? No, they don't. And again, it's just kind of the futility of what they're doing at this point in time, but we've discussed that ad nauseum. Twitter. I have to talk about this a little bit. Another dump came out. This is from Kevin Downey over at PJ Media. Asks question, why you need to start paying attention to the Twitter files. Now, again, I've gotten flack from listeners. You're not talking about the Twitter files enough and all this stuff. And I admit it. The reason why I haven't talked about it to that great of a degree is none of this surprises me. Again, it's like me getting excited over somebody saying, look, the sky is blue. Oh my gosh, water's wet. Anyway, let's go through some of these things that have come out. FBI paid Twitter $3.5 million to censor conservatives. The FBI pressured Twitter to give them information that would legally require warrants, even though they did not have those warrants. Leading up to the 2020 election, the FBI would eventually hold weekly meetings with Twitter and tell them whose tweets to squelch and which accounts they wanted to be suspended. Almost all of those were conservatives. The FBI knew the Hunter laptop story was real, and they knew it was coming out. Weeks before the 2020 election, they told Big Tech to expect some sort of Russian disinformation drop and squelch the story. That means the FBI corrupted the election to help Joe. There are so many former FBI employees at Twitter that they have their own Slack channel. Elon Musk did an interview. He said nearly every conspiracy theory about the social media platform has turned out to be true. Is there a conspiracy theory about Twitter that didn't turn out to be true? So far, they've all turned out to be true, if not more true than people thought. Why, Chris? You should be talking about this. I do. I have been. I've gone off on the FBI for years. I can't even believe that agency still exists. Going back to the things that they did back in the 1960s on through. I mentioned this before, and again, we covered it. I think Rush Limbaugh did at the time. When Donald Trump got elected and he talked about going after CIA and FBI and whatnot. I remember Chuck Schumer with Rachel Maddow kind of, better be careful what you're saying. I'm paraphrasing here, and you can go and you can pull up the YouTube video. Those agencies got 6 ways past Sunday to get back at you. What are you saying, Chuck? You can't criticize these agencies? You can't. I mean, let's be honest, people. The bureaucratic state runs the country. They do. I mean, Donald Trump talked up draining the swamp. Okay. However, it sounded great. I was rah-rahing that all the way. Did he have a plan to do it? No. You're going to do something like that. I mean, you've got to be ready to go. You got to be armed with lawyers and a myriad of things and how you're going to go about defunding this. And you got to make sure that you get elected, you get the right politicians on your side. These agencies, again, it's just this bureaucratic state that we live in. They're all powerful. For how many years here on the program we've talked about the judge, jury, and executioners of all these acronym agencies inside the executive branch. George W. Bush expanded the size of government more than anybody else did with Homeland Security and all the crap that they pulled in. it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The hell does the FBI have any business on this? They don't. They don't. It's bureaucracy. They're self-preservation. Self-preservation. And I don't see it going away. You guys see a candidate out there, people talking about Ron DeSantis like he's going to be some sort of savior. Listen, I hope someday, because I love Ron DeSantis. I think he's done an unbelievable job in the state of Florida. However, I'm going to be honest with you, okay? He is, I mean, you got to have a team ready to go. That people that you can trust, like-minded people that are outside of government, they're going to want to come in and just tear the whole thing down. Tear it down. We're hitting the reset button. No more federal bureau. You understand the uproar? You understand the media blowback you're going to get from this? Hey, when you get stories in movies, for example, Hollywood making up, negative stories about the feds. Yeah, actually, wait a second. I can remember one now. Is Die Hard, one of my favorite Christmas movies. Remember when the FBI came in? Hans Gruber was all excited. What did he say? You ask for miracles, I give you the FBI. Remember? Shut down the power. They did exactly what they wanted. Yeah, buffoons. But I get it. You got some of the good ones are there, but at what point in time do we say enough? I mean, you just look at these Twitter files and what they were doing, and these are people who should go behind bars. Stuff's illegal. And it's just said this is an agency that's rotten. We need to get rid of it, and you can present that. You can present that if you have the right people around you looking to back you. And again, I just think it's too difficult. And again, it goes back to end of the year type stuff. My philosophy here is that you want people take back the country and make America great again, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, you're gonna have to do it state by state. You're gonna have to do it state by state. You need to have strong state governments. States are gonna have to start working in a more autonomous manner. And what does that mean? That might mean stop taking money from the federal government. For obviously outside of funding for various different federal programs that are approved there, and look to become more independent. You saw this past weekend, so Democrats up in arms because Governor Abbott sending illegals to Kamala Harris's house. There's a political stunt. This is evil. It's immoral. It's not Christian. So you're putting this guy in a position. How many people did the state of Texas have to take care of? You're not doing your job. You're not doing your job. Do you think that he wants to have these people come across? You think he should have to deal with it? Again, I would be taking it a step further. I'd be taking it a step further. I would be up the National Guard in my state. And I said, you know what? The federal government's not going to take care of it. We're going to take care of it ourselves. You're not going to do it. We're going to take care of it ourselves. Anyway, let him fight it out in the courts. Anyway, Matt Taibbi, I've talked about him here in the program. He's one of my favorite investigative reporters out there. He does an absolutely fantastic job, and he was heavily involved, along with former New York Times, she was a writer and also I think she was an editor there as well for a period of time. Bari Weiss, I could be wrong on that. But they did a lot when it came to the Twitter files. And he talked about the work that he's done. And lately, the past month and a half going through, he says, how weird is modern day America? Not long ago, CIA veterans tell me the information above the tear line of a U.S. government intelligence cable would include the station of origin and any other CIA offices copied on the report. And he said, I spent most of today looking at similar documents, seemingly written by the same people, except the offices copied at the top of the reports weren't other agency stations, but Twitter's Silicon Valley colleagues. Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, LinkedIn, even Wikipedia. It turns out these are the new principal intelligence outposts of the American empire. A subplot is these companies seem not to have had much choice in being made key parts of a global surveillance and information control apparatus, although evidence suggests their quisling executives were almost all thrilled to be absorbed. And again, he mentions this as well. And it's a good question he poses here. Sometime in the last decade, many people, I was one, began to feel robbed of their sense of normalcy by something we couldn't define. I admit I would get depressed over the situation, things that were happening. It would bother me to such a degree. Increasingly glued to our phones, we saw that the version of the world that was spat out at us from them seemed distorted. The public's reactions to various news events seemed off kilter, being either way too intense, not intense enough, or simply unbelievable. You'd read that seemingly everyone in the world was in agreement that a certain thing was true, except it seemed ridiculous to you. And this puts you in an awkward place with friends, family, others. Should you say something? Or are you the crazy one? See, I never had that problem. I never questioned. And I'm surprised Matt did, because he's a real bright guy. He says, I can't have been the only person who struggled psychologically during this time. This is why these Twitter files have been such a bomb. This is the reality they stole from us. It's repulsive, horrifying, and dystopian. A gruesome history of a world run by anti-people. Anti-people. I like that. But I'll take it any day over the vile and insulting phasmil of truth they've been selling. Personally, once I saw these lurid files could be used as a roadmap back to something like reality, I wasn't sure until this week. I relaxed for the first time in probably 7 or 8 years. Matt, I hope you're right. I mean, I really do. And God bless you for the work that you and Barry Weiss have done on this. It is, but I'm going to be honest with you. I don't feel like it's going to really change much. I don't. I don't think it. I really don't think it's going to change much. I mean, it's the lying and all this crap in government. It's been around for a while. I mean, all the major newspapers and news agencies, they helped the Bush administration get us into the Iraq war. Every single one of them. Every single one of them in lockstep. These are tools of propaganda. And again, I warned about social. I warned how all of this would be used. Again, this is what you got all of these government agencies saying, oh, you can't have TikTok on your phones. Can't have TikTok on your phones. The rest of the country is fine. Why do you think that is? Government sees it as a tool that they're going to be able to use at some point in time to manipulate you. Again, how often here on the program do we talk about conventional wisdom being poisonous? Conventional wisdom is poison. It's a narrative. And you've got to, at some point in time, you've got to adapt to it and understand what's being sold to you. Anyway, I got to talk about this story as well. You've got, this came to light. I saw this, it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago in the New York Times. And I said, uh-oh, this guy's in trouble. This guy's in trouble. But again, we live in a world where, nobody feels any shame, I guess. It was one of the great, and I highly recommend it, one of my favorite comedians out there, Sebastian Maniscalco, was the title of one of his stand-up routines is, Aren't You Embarrassed? And it was phenomenal. And we got this New York representative-elect, George Santos. George Santos, not my district, but he's not far. He's a district over from where I live. he admitted to lying during his campaign about his work experience and education and his business. His entire resume was a flippin' fugazi. Everything. Except maybe that he's gay. But maybe that might be a lie too. Maybe that helped get him elected. I don't know. And I'm saying to myself, okay, and these are simple things that the Republican Party could have checked. How difficult is it to check to see if somebody worked at Citigroup and Goldman Sachs? How difficult is it to find out whether or not they went to college? This is your Republican Party. A bunch of freaking dumbass elephants. Man, I want to insult elephants. I love elephants. They can't, it's a game that can't shoot straight. You're not going to vet somebody? You're not going to look into this? I'm blown away by this. And now here's the conversation. George Santos, he's still gonna remain. He's going to Congress. He's going to Congress. This shows you how zero spine Republicans are. I'd be like, no way. They should get together and say, we don't want you. We can't have this. I know, but look at the politics. Kevin McCarthy, the Republicans need that seat. Tough. And you know what? Run the damn thing again. If you lose, you lose. Well, yeah, Chris, but Biden lies about this and makes stuff up all the time. I don't give a flying you-know-what. The point is you're to be better than that. You're supposed to be better. The Republican Party should be using him as an example. We don't accept this. This is completely unacceptable. Goodbye. Now, again, there's certain rules and regulations how you can get somebody thrown out. I think the way that they could probably do it is he made up everything in regards to his businesses, which means he lied on his financial disclosure, which may be a way to get him out. But you want to see how spineless, how weak the Republican Party is? I give you George Santos. Oh, we don't know how to handle it. We're going to investigate it. We're going to have him. We're going to have a meeting. We got top, the old Raiders of the Lost Ark. We got top men working on it right now. Top elephants working on it right now. Baloney. Okay? Baloney. You come out and, we constantly, Breitbart, all the right of center, they'll be constantly pointing out when Biden makes a gaffe or lies about something. Fine. I don't have any problem with that. But don't be a hypocrite. This guy's got to go. Be better than that, right? Anyway, got to talk about this as well. This, again, big fat frickin' see, I told you so. New York Times, great piece on what's happening in China. And it's really bad. It is really, really bad. It's an absolute disaster. Hospitals are overrun. You've got doctors, you've got surgeons that have COVID with symptoms, having no choice but having to perform surgeries and doing all of these things. It is a mess. And this was inevitable based upon how stupid their policies were. Again, it's part of the narrative that's out there. It's part of the narrative. China's going to take over the world. There's got to be fear of China. They're freaking morons. Yeah, I'm saying it. China, you're freaking morons. You didn't see this coming? They weren't prepared. The hospitals were. It's a disaster. And you're going to be talking about, millions of people are going to die. They've got no sort of herd immunity when it comes to this. And again, it just shows you centrally planned governments fail. We failed. We could have done a much better job here in the United States. But the funny thing is, go back, all the left was, hey, it's lockdowns, it's the way to go. No, it wasn't. No, it was not the way to go. And China is going to be proof positive. Respiratory diseases. You can run, but you can't hide. Anyway, the irony of this, China with its super lockdowns, nobody could get in, nobody could leave the country, all this stuff. Now they're going to scrap their quarantines for international travelers to come in and also allowing their citizens to leave. How is it right now that we're not seeing, what's her name, Walensky or these other, how is it that we haven't said, no flights from China? You have a massive outbreak taking place there right now. You've got no herd immunity. We don't know what other type of variants might come out of there. Sorry, folks, the United States is closed to China. Why isn't the rest of the world acting on this? What the hell are you afraid of? They'd have no problem doing it. No. I mean, any flights coming, everybody needs to be tested. Everybody needs to be checked, period, the end. Okay, it's the things that, who's running the show? How stupid can we be? Anyway, one more. Talk a little bit about woke university. I'm kind of hoping and praying that we're getting to the point where we've almost jumped the shark when it comes to all of this woke crap at these colleges and universities. Actually, by the way, remember that whole Oberlin College thing that we talked about, where they went after a bakery because the bakery dared try to apprehend and arrest students from Oberlin that were stealing wine from the store. But then because they were black, they claimed that it was racist. And then the school said, nobody shop there. This is a racist store, all this stuff. Well, yeah, they won a $20-something million suit against Oberlin. Oberlin tried not to push it off, try to appeal it. They lost. Good. Anyway, Victor Davis Hanson, woke university implosion and what comes next. And he talks about, in the 1990s and culture wars are starting up. We had a lot of tuition hikes at that point in time. That's where tuition really started getting parabolic, going through the roof. Again, you got all the student loan programs and whatnot that fed into this. Again, got put on steroids. Barack Obama taking over the student loan program. Left-wing indoctrination, administrative bloat, obsessions with racial preferences, arcane jargon-filled research, and campus-wide intolerance of diverse thought shortchanged students, further alienated the public, and often enraged alumni. Over the last 30 years, these are the numbers, okay? Over the last 30 years, enrollments in the humanities and history crashed. So did tenure-track faculty positions. Some $1.7 trillion in federally backed student loans have only greenlighted inflated tuition and masked the contagion of political indoctrination and watered down courses. Anyway, these numbers, this is telling. Okay, this is telling. Nationwide, undergraduate enrollment dropped by more than 650,000 students in a year. That's 4%. From the spring of 21 to 22, 14% in the last decade. Yet our population increases by about 2 million a year. Men account for about 71% of the current shortfall. Students, women number almost 60% of college students, an all-time high. Monotonous professors hector students about toxic masculinity as gender studies proliferate. The plan was to drive males off campus. Universities have succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. The number of history majors has collapsed by 50% in just the last 20 years. Tenured history positions have declined by 1/3 to half at major state universities. In the last decade alone, English majors across the nation's universities have fallen by 1/3. Yale University. Administrative positions have soared over 150% in the last 2 decades, but the number of professors increased by 10%. Now, this is Stanford. This is going to blow your mind. Stanford recently enrolled 16,937 undergraduate and graduate students. But lists, wait for it, 15,750 administrative staff. That's almost a 1-to-1 ratio of an administrator to student, for crying out loud. Again, I don't get it. I really don't. And again, this just shows you how spineless the faculty are. I mean, how is this? How are you professors not revolting over this? I don't get that. 6-figure salary, diversity, equity, and inclusion commissars. Yeah. And you can't criticize them. Anyway, and again, he talks about some of the gender issues and the racial issues that are involved and what's going on at some of the schools. I didn't even know this right now. I guess Cornell students are pushing now for pass-fail courses. They wouldn't be the first Ivy League school that is pushing to go pass-fail. Yeah. One of my son's friends transferred out of the university that he's going to right now to an Ivy League school, came back to visit all his friends, and it's like, you guys wouldn't believe how easy this is. You wouldn't believe how easy this is. Everything's pass-fail. Professors don't care if we show up at class. This is an Ivy League school. So not Cornell. I'll mention the name. It was Brown. Anyway, new school in New York. Students demand that everyone gets an A. Yeah, this is supposed to be an elite school in New York. The students right now are revolting, and they're demanding that there be only A grades given out. Anyway, again, might be getting to that point in time where the rubber hits the road. Actually had an email from one of my listeners. He was talking about his alma mater, and he refuses to donate to it. I don't donate to mine either, but I do to Hillsdale, as he does as well. I will to them. They should be a model of what to do. It's colleges and universities are going the way of almost like these ridiculous college bowl games that nobody gives a damn about anymore. Anyway, have a great day, everyone. WatchDog on WallStreet.com. WatchDog on WallStreet.com. We'll see you.